So, how do you take a group of people who've lost everything and turn them into a force that can't be stopped? Today, we're jumping into an incredible story about what true leadership really looks like and how one person can spark change for an entire community. It's a question we all think about, right? Is a leader just the person calling the shots, or is there something more to it? We're about to see what leadership looks like when it's really put to the test. Okay, so before we get into the story, let's talk about the basic toolkit for any great leader. You've got to make smart choices, and stand by them. You need to be able to trust your team. And maybe most important of all, you have to be that voice that keeps everyone going when things get tough. Keep these three things in mind because we're about to see them in a big way. All right, let's set the scene. We're going to a place called Kheda in India. The people living here were farmers, and their whole lives revolved around the land. But something was about to happen that would put everything they had at risk. And that something was a force of nature. A really, really bad drought swept through the region. No rain meant no crops. It was a total failure, leaving families with absolutely nothing. And just so we're all on the same page, a drought isn't just a dry spell. We're talking about a long, crushing period with no rain. For a farmer, it is the worst case scenario. It's a complete disaster. And this is where a terrible situation becomes a true injustice. Even though the farmers had lost everything, the British government, which was in charge at the time, still insisted they pay a huge tax. I mean, can you imagine? They had nothing, and yet they were being told to give up even more. The farmers were backed into a corner. They were completely desperate. But someone was watching. A lawyer from the area, a man named Vallabhbhai Patel, saw what was going on. He saw their pain, and he knew he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Now, Patel wasn't your average lawyer. He had this reputation for being incredibly determined. In fact, people called him the Iron Man of India. And for good reason. Once he decided on something, he simply would not back down. So Patel stepped up to lead the farmers, but his plan wasn't to fight with violence. No, he chose a much more powerful weapon, non-violent resistance. This was an idea made famous by Mahatma Gandhi, and it was all about fighting injustice with courage and unity, not with weapons. So how do you pull it off? Well, his strategy was actually pretty straightforward. First, he brought everyone together. He gave them one clear, simple goal. Then came the plan. Peacefully and together, they would all refuse to pay that unfair tax. He didn't stop there. He gathered allies, other lawyers, experts, and made sure women were a core part of the movement. And through it all, he was their anchor, keeping their spirits up when the government tried to scare them into giving up. And guess what? It totally worked. All of a sudden, these weren't just a bunch of scared individual farmers anymore. No, they were one solid, united front. Their unity was like a shield. And you gotta understand, this wasn't a quick protest. This went on for months. The government tried all sorts of things to break their spirit, but with Patel leading the way, their resolve was like iron. They just wouldn't budge. And in the end, that quiet, steady determination proved to be stronger than the entire government. After months of standing their ground, the British authorities finally backed down. The people won. So what did they win? Well, for starters, the tax was canceled, and they were given relief, but it was so much more than that. The farmers of Kheda showed the world and themselves that when they stood together, they could face down injustice and come out on top. This victory was massive, not just for the farmers, but for Vallabhbhai Patel himself. It showed everyone what a powerful leader he was. This moment basically launched him into the national spotlight and made him one of the most important people in India's entire struggle for freedom. So, let's tie this all together. What does this story really teach us about being a leader? Well, we saw that Iron Man determination firsthand. We saw a leader unite people, give them a clear plan, and inspire them. But maybe the biggest lesson of all, a real leader doesn't wait around for someone else to fix things. A leader is the one who sees a problem and takes the first step. And look, this isn't just some old story from a history book. It's about us, right here, right now. It's asking you to look around your own life, at school, in your group of friends, in your family. Where do you see something that isn't right? Where can you be the one to step up? Because at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. Leadership has nothing to do with having a fancy title or being officially in charge. A true leader is simply someone who sees what needs to be done and has the courage to do it. It's all about action.